Hey, family, and welcome to our golden episode number 30. Today marks the 30th episode of Critical Sense Making Sessions, facilitated by yours truly, Revolutionary Rika. And today we have a special guest, a special lineup for you all. I like to call them my Moxie girls, my Moxies. So today you're going to be mingling with me, with my Moxies, as we share our collective stories. Today's topics will range from Black history, to just our experiences in the academy, as well as women's history and the impact of the dual pandemics. So we hope you will kick back,
Mm.
relax, you can shake your dreads, kick your shoes off, and have a good time with us. So to get us started, I would love for each lady just to introduce who they are, tell us one thing that you are passionate about, and one word to describe how you're showing up. And anyone can go first.
I'll go first. I'm Ty Day. I am passionate about self-care and yoga in particular. One thing or one word to describe how I'm showing up is present.
Thank you, Ty. Welcome. Welcome back.
All right, I'll speak up next as the elder of the group around here. My name is Pier Angeli LaPlace, and I am passionate about integrity. Integrity, and today I'm bringing love, just bringing love and joy. I'm feeling a lot of joy to be here today. So thank
Thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Monique. I'm passionate about um, just about leadership. I'm passionate about leadership, and today I'm bringing in peace because I do feel a little bit of peace today.
Hmm.
Right.
Nice.
We got present, we have love, and we have peace to set the tone and the stage for our conversation. So we're excited to have you ladies on, and we're going to jump right into our icebreaker question. And so for today, if you had to have a song title for your life, where your life is right now in this moment,
Hmm.
what song would that be?
Lord. Well, first of all, it's hard to narrow it down to one song because music has always been both inspiring for me or a balm, right? Soothing for me. Sometimes my go-to will, in some real times of adversity, particularly racial adversity, it has been Rise Up, Andra Day. But if I had to really settle on one, then I'm gonna go real old school, and it's Earth, Wind, and Fire. Keep your head to the sky. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Angeli. I love that song. One of my favorites. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with the song I was listening to for a second before I hopped on, Keep Your Head Up by Tupac.
Mm.
Another power.
For me, it is pieces of me. Let us see.
Okay.
I like all
Um,
the songs.
yeah.
Monique, you got to start a Moxie playlist on Spotify
Right?
Oh, yes.
and
I'm
add
becoming a
this.
pro at that, so I'm gonna have to figure it out. I'm gonna have to figure that one out.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well,
We do have.
thank you for sharing your songs. Just those songs bring up a lot of memories for me. All three of those songs, and so definitely grateful to have you all highlight those songs because they mean something in our lives from a time when we was going through struggle. And like you said, music can be a balm. It can be healing for our souls and even for our just mental state. So I appreciate you all for doing that. I'm going to move us into our first set of questions. And so I want to start off with the last day of Black History Month. And we've been celebrating, and we all celebrate all year long. We don't just wait
Yes.
for this time of the year. But for this month, I would love for you to highlight who is your favorite Black history personality and why.
Mm.
I'll start off since I've been taking up the rear. This year for me, I'm going with Audre Lorde,
Okay.
poet, advocate for Black feminism, LGBTQ rights. and just speaking up. And I love, she says your silence will not protect you. And so that and the master tools will never dismantle the master house are two quotes right now from her that just kind of they're guiding this this courageous journey I feel like I'm taking right now in trying to humanize spaces for Black women in leadership.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, I'll share. I feel similar to this question, Rika, as I did about the song, right? There's so many people, ancestors, people that we can look to around Black History Month. But I'm going to say Toni Morrison, who used her voice, her creativity, and her love in a particular way, and never shied away from her stance, not just for Black people, but just in terms of bringing that space of love to everything she did. And one of the things that she talked about, which for me is so powerful, she talked about Black women. It's a quote that I love of her. She said, and she, Black woman, had nothing to fall back on, not maleness, not whiteness, not ladyhood, not nothing. And out of profound desolation of her reality, she may well have invented herself. And that has carried me through a lot of leadership and times when I have had to invent myself because the narrative that was being told I knew was false. So Toni Morrison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See that genius in this group already?
I'm gonna highlight my favorite, and we share a birthday. Fannie Lou Hamer. I was introduced to Fannie Lou Hamer in 4th grade. My parents would not let me do my Black History report on someone I already knew, and they highlighted Fannie Lou Hamer. They're from Mississippi. She's from Mississippi, and I have always respected how she used her voice in fought for voters' rights.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I like old Fannie Lou. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Absolutely. I'm gonna add one in for this question. I said I wasn't gonna respond, but y'all got me going. So I'm gonna add Mahalia Jackson. A lot of times she only gets credited with her ability to sing. She was known as the world's greatest gospel singer, but she was a true civil rights activist, and a lot of people don't give her or highlight the fact that she was in those conversations about the dream and those meetings that they were all having sitting around. And so when you look at the March on Washington, he was reading a whole nother speech until she pumped him up. I call her the first hype man, right? She was like, tell him about the dream, Martin, tell him about the dream. Because the crowd was like, had a lull over it. She had just sung, I've been buked and I've been scorned. And so she hyped him up. And so that infamous speech came out of her hyping him up and the endless conversations that they all had when they would get together in Chicago and Detroit and some of the other cities across the South. So, yeah.
That's powerful, and I think so much of when we really delve into Black history and we can see that pattern of what Black women meant in the movement. I mean, I think of Claudette Colvin and others, right, that really held it down and were much more of a silent voice, but strength behind the scenes, right?
Right.
So
it's funny you mentioned that Melissa Harris Perry, Sister Citizen.
Yes.
Yes, the bridge that is my back, and she talked about the Black woman being the mule of the world. So hearing you say that, I mean, we've been carrying all the work for a very long time. Awesome, thank you, ladies. So how were you challenged? Now I'm going into some academia. How were you challenged in academic settings growing up?
So part of me wants to say, how was I not? You know what I mean? So I'm from New Orleans originally, New Orleans has really mostly its school system. There's a lot of parochial schools. And I was born in the 50s there. So during period of Jim Crow segregation. When my family moved out here to Oakland, and that's where I went to high school, and they put me back in parochial schools, Holy Names High School in Oakland, all girls high school. And it's a PWI, it's a predominantly white institution at that time, at least. So there were very few Black people in my school setting, my sisters, myself, and our few friends. So, you know, when I said, how have I not, I really mean that, because the intellectual standard was white, the cultural standard was white, you know, every aspect of that, but also the standard of beauty was white. So, you know, there was the dual identity of not only being Black, but being a Black female in that setting that I had to combat. And, you know, we're talking about nuns at that time. We're talking about even the lay teachers. You know, there wasn't a single, but there was one Black nun. She was a nun first. She was Black after being a nun. And that had its own implications. So it was very clear that allies were going to be only people I already knew, right? And that, for me, having to seek out strength. Thankfully, I went home to a place where there was a lot of affirmation, a lot of speaking up, not only about my experience, but about who I am. So tremendous pride, like I never questioned that aspect of things. And I consider it a blessing to come home to a household like that, you know, so.
Thank you, Pier.
And I could be more specific. I remember one particular essay I wrote for an English class where we had to talk about something that was a uniquely American institution or experience. And I wrote about jazz. And I wrote about it as the foundations of so much other music, including rock and roll and everything else, right? The blues, rock and roll, jazz and blues came out of that. So my teacher gave me an F and told me basically it was a lie, and that classical music was the strongest foundation of uniqueness in music. And I was like, okay, then, thank you for letting me know where I stand in here and what I have to deal with, right? So, yeah.
I'll go. You know, this is always a challenging question for me because I don't really know if I was challenged in my academic setting. And I think if there was a challenge, it was that I don't even know how to really put that. I'll just say this. I went K-12. I went to Catholic school. And the setting in K-8 was very diverse, and so was the setting in high school. And so I didn't really experience a lot about race or bias. I do remember having a Black girl talk with the Black teacher, the Black woman teacher in the 7th grade when we were loud walking down the hallway to music or PE. And everybody was talking. It wasn't just the Black girls, but when we got to PE, all the Black girls had to go back to the classroom with our teacher to have the discussion. And she called it the Black girl talk. And that was a discussion of us needing to be the best and always follow the rules more than anyone else, because when things happen, if we are around, we will be the ones that will be blamed for it, or, you know, have to do the discipline, you know, be disciplined or anything like that. And we were all so confused. We were like, but that was so-and-so that was talking loud and laughing. That wasn't even us. And so, and I remember going home like, oh, Mom, Miss Norman, you need to talk to her because she done gave us the Black girl talk. And we didn't even deserve it. We wasn't even the ones that was loud in line. And I missed PE. I'm gonna need you to call her. And I remember my mom asking me, well, what did she tell you? And I was explaining it, and she was like, well, I'm not gonna, if I call her, I'm gonna tell her thank you,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that
real.
is how we need to be. Like, we have to do that. And we have to be better than anything else. We have to be better than anyone else. You know, we have to always, you know, cross our T's and dot our I's, and be ready to take criticisms and things like that, if, you know, just because of who we are and what we look like. And it was, I was so done over. But so I think the challenge, I would say, was that, and it could be good or bad, but I didn't really have too many of those Black girl talk moments. And I think now, as an educator, um, I could look back and see so many, and see about so many things being a challenge for me. But I guess I just count my blessings that um, my K-12 experience, and even undergrad, was good.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for sharing.
Mo, what you just said reminds me of that scene in Scandal where Papa Pope is telling Olivia that she has to do twice as much to get half the credit.
Mhm.
And it, I think, went viral because Black women were like, yep, we knew exactly what she was going to say when he asked her, what have I always told you? It's a story we all know because it's a Black girl talk we've all been given.
At it. Yeah.
For myself, I'd say I was, in a positive way, challenged in math. I love math. I was a math educator, so I think that's a bright spot. I also realize it's probably because math is kind of objective. Like, there's a right and a wrong answer. You can check your work. You don't have to, at least back then, I didn't think I had to see myself in the numbers. I learned later that math can be way more applicable and relevant in my life. And I missed out on that part. But in school, I was definitely challenged in math because I was always looking to get to the next level and be the best at it. The part that I know I was challenged in was finding relevance in everything else, from science to history to social studies and even English language arts. I don't think we ever read a book in high school that was about Black people, unless the Black person was a slave or hiding behind the door.
White savior.
I went to I was bused out of my community to go to school from 6th grade through 12th grade. And because I was in a more affluent and very white environment, it was the norm to me that that's what school was. So I was challenged to see myself. Luckily, I come from a household that, you know, raised me to know Black excellence and have Black pride. But there was a challenge in just being connected to school in a meaningful way. I couldn't tell you a lot about what I was supposed to learn in high school, but I was a calculated B student, so my GPA would not reflect that. But it was not a meaningful or impactful experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I would just touch on one thing that Monique brought up about the doing double work. We interviewed Dr. Gholdy Muhammad at the beginning of December. And one thing she said was like, it's an unspoken, especially as we move through our program together, that to become tenured faculty, normally you only need 12 published articles, but for Black women it's 24. And they were like, it's an unspoken, but all the Black women know that. And so hearing Monique like share that, and then Ty touch on it too, it just really, I mean, it kind of sat with me in a way where I'm like, how do we change that in the academy? How do we, like, we're talking about abolitionist teaching in our, you know, with some of the work we're doing, like, how do we change that where we only have to do the same 12 that everybody else got to do, right?
I mean, I'll extend that. I think that's also, I'll speak for myself, but, you know, knowing Ty and Mo and you, it's also true in our leadership, in our educational leadership, right? So there's also the unspoken, there's no slipping, right? You don't get a whole lot of second chances. So the expectations of excellence is not just self-imposed. It isn't just a response to the way in which the world perceives us or the way in which we may be judged. It is an effort to do more than survive, right, to excel or to achieve, we know very well that, I love this term, misogyn. Well, I don't love it because it's positive. I love it because it's powerful. The concept of misogynorism, right? A particular aspect of what Black women face that white women don't face, that white men don't face, and that Black men don't face either, that brothers don't face. And it's a very particular thing that we know that we are dealing with in dual identity. And I think we carry it all of the time. So I think it can cause us to achieve at high levels. But then the question harkens back for me when Ty said that she's passionate about self-care. I ask myself often, at what cost? At what cost do we feel that we have to double excel? You know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Was there an adult that took a particular interest in you? And if so, how did they support you? I'm just thinking more like in your academic setting. So I know like our parents, we know that's a given, but I'm thinking in your academic settings, in your school or sports or something else you may have done, was there specific adult? And then just what does that look like, especially when it was successful?
Honestly, and I think maybe this pause that we are all doing is like sort of searching for it, right? At least I know I am. It wasn't until my junior year in high school that there was a particular lay teacher, again, an English teacher this time, who, and she also taught history, that began to acknowledge that I maybe had something to say, that my voice was an important voice, that it was a powerful voice, actually. She affirmed my writing and my stance in class. I have never been someone to be quiet. That has also come at a cost, but I'm hardwired that way. So it's just going to be who I am. I found that within my home, like Ty said, I found that in my home, excellence and pride. I did not find that in school or outside of that. And so I think very early on, I learned to develop that for myself, right? That what I perceived in the mirror was always going to be more important to me than what I perceived or the response I got externally. Yeah, same. But junior year in high school.
K5, my family sent me over to, for the most part, except for 1 year, predominantly Black school. I want to say up until second grade, I was at an independent Black school. And that allowed for family engagement to look different. And I can see when my parents had a relationship with my teachers, how meaningful that was for me. And that's where I found inspiration to be an educator, was the teachers from way earlier. And again, I think fourth grade.
I have two, and I'll try to get through them a little quick. First was the principal in my K-8 school, Mr. DeLucchi was his name. And I think that I remember there was a situation where my friends had came in. I was in the bathroom. I went first. My friends came in there and they was acting up, and they was standing on the sink, and the sink broke, and then they ran out. And they told me, don't say anything, because they knew that they were going to ask me out of all three of us first. So I went in not saying anything. And then they went in and said and told on themselves. And then the principal called me back in and was so hurt that that I lied. And then I knew that my mom was gonna get in my behind because I lied. And it was impactful for me because I didn't want to lose his impression of me, you know, and being in that good grace with him, because I did it for me, it was one of those things, was like, you know what, from this point forward, you better say something. Don't be taking the heat for anybody, or using your, I'm gonna say, using your privilege to
Mhm.
protect some other folks, and it don't, and they're not, you know, and it comes back on you and that messes you up. I did still get the principal's award at the end of 8th grade, and I was glad that I was able to regain his trust. But I think that was impactful for me, and to understand how he considered me a leader. And so within that leader is that integrity that Pier Angeli was talking about. And I think the next person, this will be quick, was my dance teacher in high school. Her name was Miss T. And I took dance late in my high school career, but I took it at a time where my mom and my dad were both on drugs, and I was trying to maintain being a student and going home and knowing that I was living in a crack house. And so those moments in dance class where I just would lay on the stage, or just not be um, present. Uh, she knew something was going on, but she didn't ask, and she just kind of let me just be. And when there was time, when there was a moment for her to jump in, um, she asked, and we were able to have a conversation, and it was healing for me. And so, and I think what I took from that is to always pay attention to your students, to the, not just what they're saying, but like paying attention to them, haircuts, what they're doing, how their mannerisms. Just know your students, so that you can identify when they're going through something, and know how to support. So I think those would be my two.
Yeah.
So when I think about what you all share, I think one thing I hear for educators is being who your young people, being who the young people need when you were that age. So really
Yeah.
thinking about, dang, when I was in a second grade, like Ty talked about, or even you in high school, like, right, who did I need at that age? And so how am I showing up as those people for the young people I work with, or empowering staff to show up as those people for the young people to connect with. So thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to move us into the second set of questions. And the first one is a fun one. Pier Angeli's going to struggle with this one because she can only choose one. What song sums up your feelings about Black history and why?
I'm gonna let somebody else go first, because you're right. I'm struggling with it. I gotta choose one.
I'll go with Sam Cooke. The change is gonna come.
Yes.
I want to believe that Black History Month is a moment in time for us to highlight and celebrate Black excellence, but we need to do it all year. And yeah, I would say a change is still needed, and I have to believe a change is gonna come at some point.
I'm going to sneak in there behind you, and just from that same period, Curtis Mayfield in The Impressions, We're a Winner. I love that song. So we're a winner. We're a winner. Yep. Just a good
Well,
empowerment.
then I'm just gonna slide on in too, and go with Donny Hathaway, and Someday We'll All Be Free.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nice.
Now bring it into the modern time. I'm gonna take it to India Arie. What if we're the ones we've been waiting for can change the world?
That's on my playlist right now.
Nice. Nice, nice,
Okay,
nice.
bring us home, Mama.
Yeah,
bring
I'm
us home,
gonna do
Angeli.
that too. So I'm gonna go because all of those, yes. I'm gonna go Sweet Honey in the Rock. How long? And so they're not just saying that as a question. They're like, not just how long, but how long do we wait before we step up? And that it is on us. That's who it's on. It's on us to step up, right? Because and it reminds me whenever I hear that song of Martin Luther King saying, you know, what that how long is too long, right? Before we need to do something. So yeah.
You saying that reminds me so much of Dr. G. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So how long is time? The time is now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's four
I
more
was
songs.
gonna go Nina Simone and say Mississippi, goddamn, but that's all right.
Okay, that's a powerful one though.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
And what's interesting, I think I ain't looked at it yet, but it's something came out on Billie Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something for us to look forward to, and then we can make critical sense of what we see in there. All
Yeah.
right, moving us along. How have you been challenged in your career? So thinking about the ways that you were challenged earlier in your educational journey, now thinking about your career, how have you been challenged?
I'm retiring in June. It'll be 35 years in education. I have been a teacher, a department chair, an assistant principal, a principal. I have been an administrator for, I think this is my 14th or 15th year. I've lost track. And I have experienced some very powerful resistance and pushback on not just efforts, but actions toward greater equity and justice for students and for families, all students and families, but specifically intentionally Black and Brown students and families and staff.
Mhm.
I have experienced my own sense of naivete that as educators, we are committed to the uplift of all of our students. And I remember being startled and then sort of like looking at myself, like, how can you be startled, right? At the prioritizing that in this case, that of white resistance in the name of getting what they wanted, which distilled down to getting rid of me, over any commitment they may have held on any level toward students. I don't think I was prepared for how much their hatred and their fear would outweigh their love or caring. And it reminded me of a quote that James Baldwin said about resistance, in which he talks about we should not be surprised. As a matter of fact, we should expect it. And I think he called it brutal and determined resistance, that we should expect that. So I remember the moment where I decided to extract myself from a very, best word is abusive situation that I was in, to leave on my own terms, although it was difficult to do, because what I was determined to do is to continue to use my voice and my position of power and authority to make change. So in whatever way that might look. But I can tell you, in looking back on 35 years, very few of those years have not met with some level of challenge and resistance. And I give thanks to my higher power and to my ancestors for the strength to just keep moving through it, so yeah.
Thank you for being transparent and sharing your authentic truth with the audience, because I think that's the first step to, one is acknowledgement, and being able for people to see you acknowledging that. It's just empowering for others.
Go ahead, Ty.
I would just say that in my career, I've been challenged because of the slow pace of the progress. I feel like in year 15 in education, I'm having the same conversations I had as my summer entering this work around making learning meaningful for kids, especially from communities that are marginalized and disenfranchised. So it's frustrating because whether I'm planning and facilitating the centering equity at our school PD, or I'm just having a one-on-one conversation with a teacher about how to make what they're presenting to kids impactful and worth the kids' time, and not just based on a standard that's going to be assessed at the end of the year. Just feel like we're doing the same stuff in a lot of ways. So I'm challenged by still wanting there to be more change. And on my own professional tip, I've been challenged by people that are in positions of power that don't look like the folks that they serve, and make choices and decisions for the people they serve that are not good, and have actually harmed kids and families.
Mm-hmm.
But the accountability is lacking because they're in charge. So those are 2 points that I found challenging, but of many, 2 of many.
Thank you.
For me, gosh, there's 20 years in this game right here called education. And when we think about intersectionality, and I think coming in, me just saying 20 years, I'm sure people like, yeah, right, 20 years you've been teaching or in education. But I dealt with a lot of age discrimination coming in, and then definitely being a coach, I dealt with discrimination around my sexuality, and then I think heading into administration, I like Ty. We've been talking about equity and fair treatment for the whole time. We've been teaching folks and bringing out all of these conversations about, humanizing school spaces for all. I don't just say students, but for everyone. And we still keep coming back to these conversations. They continue to just be conversations. And so I think when I think about challenges in my career now, I don't know who said this quote, but it's been something that's been staying in my head, and it's, your perception of me is a reflection of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a Black woman in leadership, the resistance that Pier Angeli is mentioning, I am experiencing daily, by the minute, even on days off, is happening.
Yeah.
And so just when I look at what has been pretty much just like the goal and the guide of my career in humanizing spaces and creating, nurturing positive school culture and climate wherever I am, getting people to enjoy their job or school, and find those ways to connect. As a leader, as a Black woman in leadership, I'm finding that I'm still doing the same thing, and I'm leading by those same values. However, how I show up as being a Black woman in charge. A lot of my staff members, either my supervisors and or my staff members, we still trying to figure out how to really respect Black women in leadership. And so, I battle with being called a dictator, or people just flat out just refusing to do anything that I say. Collaboration is, you do what I tell you to do, and that's how I'm gonna collaborate with administration. There's no, like collectiveness. And then just that lack of support, because I can't call out what it is, because there's no system that allows me to call out the bias and the racism that I'm experiencing. So I think my battle right now is, many folks try to tell us how to conform and how to just make it through. I'm trying to switch this shit up. Like, it's time to break this stuff down, and create a new system. So yes, I think that the challenge is as a site leader, is how I show up, and who is respecting me for what I bring, not necessarily what I look like.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And what I represent.
Yeah, you guys shared a lot, and it just speaks to the layers of challenges that Black women leaders are faced with. You can
Mhm.
look at any industry. I've been doing some work with Black Female Project, which Mo and Pier Angeli will be special guests in March. Ty stopped by on Thursday for our opening session, and I don't care if it's business, I don't care if it's the airline industry, whatever it is. Black women need affinity groups because they need spaces to
Yes.
discuss the challenges and the trauma, the triggering of past trauma, and the additional trauma that's being layered on in whatever institution we're in. I'm not even going to say just academia because it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And so being
Yeah.
able to create spaces such as these, one, just for them to discuss so that they understand when they are in a setting that they feel isolated in. Thinking about Pier Angeli being in Palo Alto. That's not a district where she probably has a lot of allies. And so what happens to someone like a Pier Angeli? Do we just allow her to get lost in the shuffle? No support is put in place, and then that genius leaves the district? Or do we use that genius to dismantle what Mo just talked about, these systems, these oppressive, toxic systems that have just caused us more challenges and actually, they basically uphold the status quo, right?
Absolutely. You know, there's and I believe he was the head of the local NAACP in Montgomery, but I could be wrong about that. But in the documentary Eyes on the Prize series, he spoke about, listen, rattlesnakes don't commit suicide.
Right.
You have to cut their heads off.
Right.
Because systems, whatever the system is, and you're right, it isn't just in education, are self-perpetuating structures. They are there to serve the system itself.
Mhm.
And when Black women come in and we're bringing a stance on humanity, love, caring, spirituality, rooted in service, servant leadership, in the best of that phrase, then we are bringing an entirely different paradigm that the system closes in on to say, oh, hell no, look like you're trying to change stuff up around here. And you're right, isolation is one of the aspects that we have to learn to combat. We have to figure out where those places, right? Because it isn't just faces, because I love this, Ty. I love the expression. She's like, all skin ain't kin, right? So it's not just the faces, it's the places that we have to create that really did not just give us that solace, but help to provide that strength. Like, I'm not in this alone. Although on a daily basis for the last 15 years, I'm the only Black female in all secondary leadership in Palo Alto Unified. Not a single other one. And I got one sister at elementary. That's it.
And I think it's interesting because we can create these affinity spaces for us. Like
Mhm.
we got what we need to do, right? Like we know that we need to have spaces for healing, for collective activism. But then we need to be heard, right? And folks that are running these places, that are the leadership of these districts and businesses and airline industries, there's some accountability on that end that needs to, it can only be changed if they're willing to make that change. We can have our groups and we can come together, and I call them like the silos of healing.
Yeah.
Like, we come together, we rah ourselves up, we put our band-aids on each other, we heal each other to go back out and be battered, to come back in. Right. And so it's like I really I'm ready, and I feel like we are ready for this time for our the lead, those that's maintaining this status quo, this hierarchy, which are mostly white men and white women, right? Understand your role and what you need to do also, right? Because we can't do it by ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And so, but we got to keep pressing,
Right.
pressing this issue, but we can't do it by ourselves. And until there is some forward movement and them pushing back against some of these systems and making these changes, you know, our these moments of these affinity spaces will just be for that, and just of healing and repairing and patching up. Because there won't be enough time unless we living together to go through healing and sharing our experiences, and then get into that collective activism piece.
Right.
You know, and so yeah.
I think that's where courage and integrity lie. Because I think one of the most important learnings I learned very early on in my life is it's impossible not to act, because inaction is action. If you choose not to act, you are acting. You're acting against whatever your actual soul might tell you is the right thing to do. But inaction is action. So you're absolutely right, you know, and it's time for that accountability to that. You know? Yeah.
I would just add too, I think in these spaces of healing that we're creating, like figuring out how we carve out time in that space to actually plan and really sit down and think about how are we currently dismantling, right? I know they say, oh, baby steps, you got to do subtle things. That's fine too, but if the subtle things are leading to dismantling the system, but if they are there to keep it in place and just give us a little reprieve from it, like, no, let's just take it out. So I think it's really about, yes, it is healing that has to happen, but at the same time, it's a healing and preparing for what's to come or what we want to come. Awesome. Okay.
That's what I think in this work, when I hear folks identify themselves as allies, I'm always curious about what that means to them. The best ones know that they can't assign that label to them. They have to be, you know, kind of approved by the community they're trying to ally with or be in allyship with. But it's interesting that folks in leadership, I'm an ally to this community and that community, and I don't see any proof. But it's so easy for them to just label themselves, and then there it is. They're given, you know, these positions of power to make big decisions for districts and whole communities and whole families and whole generations, and not have any change to their behavior or their mindset.
The true co-conspirators or allies don't call themselves out. They don't call out their labels, right? They just do the work.
It's how they move.
Yeah, they just do the work. Like they don't have to. It's the ones that do say, I am this, I stand behind. It's like, really, what you standing behind? What you what we really talking about? I agree with you, Ty.
Completely. You know, my husband and I use a phrase, and it's like, we can be pushed by pain or we can be pulled by vision. And sometimes we're pushed by pain and sometimes we're pulled by vision. So for me, the question isn't, are you running from the label of racism or racist, but are you running toward abolitionism? Are you demonstrating anti-racist behavior? Like, it's just too easy to say that, oh, racism is painful, so I'm going to deny this, right? Oh, don't call me a racist, I'm an ally. Are you an active anti-racist? Can you demonstrate your abolitionism? Because if you can't, then I don't care what you call yourself. It doesn't even matter to me. I want to know what your actions are. And this is where I go back to, if you're inactive, you are taking action to perpetuate.
Pier Angeli, remember in Mississippi? I know you like history, that's why. When James Chaney and them, I think it was 3 of them that was murdered.
Yeah, were murdered.
Two of them were white men, correct?
Right, Jewish white men. Yes.
So that's co-conspirator. They gave
right.
their life up for the civil rights movement.
That's a great question for anybody who considers themselves an ally. What part of your privilege are you willing to give up? Like, what part of your privilege are you really willing to lay down? Right? So, yeah.
Good discussion. So move us along. The final question in that one will be, how do you create space for rest and self-care during these difficult times of leadership?
I'm gonna defer to Ty on that one
Me
first.
too.
Let's go for it, girl. I'm about to call you up and say, I got my yoga mat sitting right over there.
I'm ready. You are. I'm ready. You are. I have no perfect plan, but a lot of practices that have helped me along the way. Meditation, yoga definitely help. Digital detox. I don't know if your phones give you that report, but I may have got a message just this morning. You use your phone 9 more hours this past week than you did the week. What was I doing for 9 hours on my phone? That's just not okay. But I think being very mindful about what I let in my ear gates and my eye gates can be pretty helpful to my self-care. I have to curate my social media or get off. I have to be around folks that I know share my beliefs and understand me. So your community and just certain practices that work for you. Of course, eating healthy, drinking water are easier sometimes said than done, but they do those practices too can help with balance. There are way too many days in shelter in place working from home that I haven't eaten lunch than I want to say. But I'm like not more than 15 feet away from my kitchen. So it's like you discipline on your self-care is a part of the self-care journey.
Thanks, Todd.
And I think I'm absolutely failing at creating space for rest and self-care. I think I have the best intentions to, I think for me, I'm in a space now of really in shelter in place is really shutting down work and understanding like that shut down at 4:30, whenever that is, that's also shutting down the debriefing conversations after 4:30 to get that I have to go through to get through my day to what happened, what's gone on, and separate it out, and then we all know we all have homework. But I think for me, the way in which I start this journey of disciplining myself for that self-care is just to really set those boundaries. And so I think it and I say it doesn't always happen. And now that the sun is out, like definitely just trying to get outside and walk and just and meditate and try not to internalize the negativity. And that's why I say I'm not I'll never call myself a failure, but I'm challenged right now in this self-care piece because it's a lot coming at me and don't feel like there's enough time in the day. So I'm working on that balance.
Okay.
I'm going to echo what both Ty and Mo said, and I'm actually leaning more toward Mo that my because Ty, you do a better job than any of the rest of us do. But I'm going to just say that what I know I need to do and what I always create that space for are sometimes further apart than I want them to be, right? I think, though, that I'm really clear that self-care is critical. I think about, and Dr. G brought this to us, he peeped us on to Resmaa Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands, and the idea of healing from racialized trauma, and how vital that is, how important it is that we cannot do this work and believe that we aren't constantly being re-traumatized, right? I reject the notion of post-traumatic stress disorder because it has to be post in order for it to be post-traumatic. So how about contemporary traumatic stress disorder? So nature, meditation, prayer. I have an altar in my living room with my parents' ashes on it, with pictures of my grandparents, my great-grandparents, a family Bible, right? As well as imagery from different places. I think that being able to speak with my ancestors is a solace for me, is important as a strength for me, and my grandchildren. So like right now, as we've been having this conversation, my 11-year-old granddaughter is right next to me doing homework, math homework, Ty, she likes to do her homework. And this is the one that said her Karen radar is great. It is. It was important to me, right? Not only does it bring me joy, so I try to really amplify joy in my life, but it's important to pass it forward, to look back and pass it forward. So having her listen to this conversation as a young Black girl is vital, right? Yeah, so that's what I would say.
So I'm gonna, before I move us into the next set of questions, Ty has to jump off a little early, so she's gonna be departing the conversation, but we're gonna continue on. And so Ty, if there's any last words or tips that you just wanna share before you leave, you may do so now.
Thank you. All I would add on to that last answer about self-care is that it was burnout that helped me find the practices that I needed. So again, I don't have a perfect plan, and I struggle as well, but I remember what it felt like to literally lose my edges, have all kind of sleep patterns thrown off, and just not be my best self. That I try to go forth remembering I don't have to go back to that. No is a complete sentence. I don't have to lead with yes work all the time. And admittedly, it's a scene from a show, This Is Us, that stands out to me when I think about just setting my boundaries and holding firm. It was when the dad quit his job and his coworkers gave him a fruit basket with some fruit he was allergic to. And he'd worked there for like over a decade. And he's like, I would have dropped dead and they would have just replaced me the next day because they don't care. That action of like not really being connected to him was a reminder that we can be replaced.
Yeah.
Folks don't really know you. They don't really care about you. And unfortunately, I've worked in some school systems where I didn't feel that connected to the people. And I knew if I dropped dead the next day, they'd put up my job, their joy. And I have to protect my peace and guard my joy. And I will do that as best I can. That's it. I will see y'all later.
All right, thanks Ty for signing.
Thank you.
I'm gonna keep us moving along. You guys okay?
Yeah, good. That's
So,
good.
I'm gonna turn my video off in a minute to go grab me some water, but let's
No
go.
worries.
Yeah.
Okay. What has been affirming about your academic experiences? So what has been affirming? And that can be in college, up higher ed or
Yeah.
You know, I talked enough about K-12.
okay.
I think I'm gonna take this question as my college experience.
Okay.
Affirming definitely was my going to a HBCU and coming from San Francisco, California, this melting pot of everything and everyone, and going to HBCU and just being knocked down like, oh my God, why is this not in California? What is going on? Is this how football games are? On this yard right here with all these different colors.
Happening.
What is? It wasn't even about like everybody looking like me. Like that realization came, of course, as soon as I stepped foot on the campus, but just not being a number and folks knowing me. And it could have been, yes, I was on the basketball team and I was all the way from California. And I was this little light-skinned wild child to them because they were very conservative and I was from California in their mind. So it was so affirming for me just to, it was a space where I came into who I really was and who I was starting to become, I think. And I was among so many folks that encouraged that no matter what we look like, or no matter what we did, the only thing you just make sure you kept up. You just need to stay, on top of your studies and everything that you were doing. Moving into graduate studies, Dr. Rochelle Rogers R. And speaking of, I think Rika, she will be someone who will be great for this show. Side note. But she was my admin cohort lead through Cal State. And I remember questioning going into leadership because I was like, I got to beat to my own drum. I cannot be to a same sense. No, I need to have my own lane. And I remember our first conversation because the cohort was in Oakland and I was working in Union City at the time. And there was a cohort in Fremont, Union City. But in my mind, when I signed up, I was like, I'm more Oakland Hayward than Fremont Union City. So that's the experience that I want. And I knew trying to get down 880 was going to be crazy, right, during the week. And so the first day I got there and I had emailed her and she said, well, why didn't you join the Fremont cohort? And I looked at her and I was like, because I wanted this experience. And she was like, Well, get here when you can. But you know what? She really talked a lot about being your authentic self in this role of leadership. And I think that it was her words and her teachings and her nurturing and guidance, and she's my mentor to this day, that allowed me the confidence and to feel safe going into these spaces, being my authentic self. And knowing that if I can't be, then I have to find a place where I can be, but never stop. And so I think that regards to me becoming a leader, and that and going into leadership, she has been one of those guiding voices, um, that have showed me that that I need to be who I am in order to stay in these spaces.
Mhm.
Sorry, that was long, but
No, that was good. Thank you.
No, that's all right. Don't even. So, I hear you talking about that experience of being at an HBCU, and there have been different times in my life where, because everybody in my family, everybody, Xavier, Dillard, Wilberforce, Howard, Morehouse, and Spelman is where everybody in my family went.
mhm.
I did not do that, and I landed at Stanford. Now, when I landed at Stanford, it was the year after they had decided to open up an all-Black dorm, Ujamaa House. And I spent my first 3 years in that dorm. And what I encountered there was a gift to me, because through most of my academic experience, I was considered exceptional. I don't mean that like excellent, I mean an exception to the rule, an exception to the race, and got a lot of accolades for being articulate. This is under the guise of a compliment, which we all know full well really isn't, because it's speaking volumes about the paradigm, right, of deprivation and what they believe is true about Blackness. And I always knew that. So to be immersed in an experience at a so-called Ivy League institution with other Black people who had been labeled exceptional in their high school careers, is something that I will always be grateful for. But when I think about learning, it has actually been more of what's taken place outside of a school context, of what I've learned in my communities in Oakland, what I learned when I spent a good deal of time in 3 regions of Africa. I was there on a Fulbright for a length of time studying women, post-colonialism in NGOs, and the way that women's industry was reshaping dynamics of relationships within their families and communities. That was an education, right? So I think being someone who not only wants to think, but to feel and then to act, those 3 powerful dynamics are what real education means to me, right? To draw forth from within our beings what we are inspired to not just be in the world, but inspired to do, right? And that's when I talk about integrity. Like if I give up on that, then I'm lost. So I'm constantly seeking out, what is there for me to know? How can I grow in my understanding? And then what can I do about my new understanding, right? So I listened to you, Mo, and I was like, I'm envious sometimes, and I question whether or not that was the right decision for me. But at the same, because like I'm like, but at the same time, I'm grateful for ways in which I've had to find guidance when it wasn't naturally there, So yeah, what I'd say. So for whoever is tuning into this, wherever you find yourself, whatever immersive experience, you know, it is always important to, as Mo calls it, authenticity, and I call it integrity too. It's like, be willing to look in the mirror, be willing to look in whatever space you're in and say, am I being true to me? Am I being true to who I am in this moment? Because that is when you're really learning, right? So,
I want to drop another nugget in here if you don't mind, Rika. Definitely want to give in this plug to sports, because if it wasn't for basketball, that HBCU experience I would have never had. If it wasn't for my coaches, if it wasn't for the press to make sure that my GPAs were where they were, like I told you guys, you know, when I was a senior in high school, both my parents was on crack, and if I wouldn't have graduated, I mean, at that point, at that time, nobody would have really cared, or if they did, it wouldn't have mattered.
right.
And at a time where that home, like we talked about, was not that space of empowerment and uplifting, I had to lean, and it's kind of into the second question, but I leaned on basketball because basketball was my way out. And so when I say that, to say, you know, when we're looking at affirming academic experiences, and this is another thing that I do, we can't close out
Extracurricular.
the academics of being a student athlete, you know, and what that means, and the opportunities that it provides you. Because like I said, if it wasn't for that scholarship, there was no basketball in college, and I don't even know what college would have looked like for me. And I definitely wouldn't have had that HBCU experience. So when we're looking at affirming spaces, being a student athlete, being a VAPA student, like that's academics also. Like that is academics. It's a responsibility. So I encourage those who are listening, if you have youngsters, young kids, expose them to everything that you possibly can. And don't just look at their academic journey as being that of English, math, science, history, and all of that. And understand that everything that they are able to engage in on a school campus is academics.
Yeah.
It's academic. It promotes student achievement, it promotes student success. And for many Black and Brown students, it is their way. It is their way to higher education and beyond. Because I definitely wouldn't be here with you guys right now in this space if it wasn't for that orange ball and that hoop that got me through so much.
That's sometimes where people find their voice and find their power. And wherever you find your voice and your power, that's what needs to be set on fire and let loose. You know, my husband Mwata says he wouldn't have graduated from Berkeley High if it weren't for theater and music. He's like, you know, and Swahili class. He's like, that's all I was trying to do was theater, music, and Swahili. So, you know.
I appreciate you for lifting up athletics too, Mo, because that's why I put academic experiences. I was hoping that y'all educators, so I knew you'd catch on. But for our viewers, sometimes people think about academics, they're thinking about the subjects and that's it. They're not thinking about the relationships, the environment, the culture of care that should be in schools, right? And so when I think about this question, Coach Charles Hill comes to mind because most of us, our fathers had left at that point. They were no longer in the homes. Most of the girls that were on my team, they had relationships with their fathers, but they were no longer there. And that is a critical period in your life when you need that. And so Coach Hill stepped in as a coach. So he had his classroom open at lunchtime. He was making sure, you know, for the ones that didn't have a lot of money, he would give you a few dollars or whatever it was, but he made sure you were okay. It was more than scoring buckets and playing defense, right? And so when he wanted to be father figure, he was. I mean, I think a couple times he might have KO'd me in the forehead, you know, just because I was trying to act up, but in a loving uncle type way. And so listening to you both, I think about him and those lessons about authentic self. It came through in other ways. It may not have been that language, right? But how we you don't have to fit into this crooked room. Melissa Harry Perry talk about, right? You could stay, the room can stay crooked, but I'm walking in there upright. And so how
There
do
you
I make
go.
sure I'm okay?
Yeah.
And then I think the second piece to what Pier Angeli talked about, this reminded me of Coach Hill too, just how what you're doing impels you to action. We can sit around and talk all day long about what needs to happen or what we did 20 years ago and all of this stuff. But if we ain't getting out there right now and impacting lives now, then all of this is for what? What is it really for? And so I appreciate you too for pulling that up, because I think the other thing is for a lot of our students, they have to affirm themselves. And if
Yes,
they
you
don't know
do.
what that looks like, they're not affirming themselves. It's the negative self-talk. It's the I don't see any value in myself, right? And so, and if they're not around adults who are constantly being able to say that stuff, speak it into them, and encouraging and highlighting and celebrating them, I mean, we just continue to do the same stuff. So that's what I gathered from what you all shared.
Yeah, most definitely.
And so, as an educational leader, what do you need more of?
Hmm.
Respect.
Okay.
RESPECT. Find out what it means to be.
Yeah.
You know, respect definitely. Advocacy. Um, I I think you need space to lead.
Mm.
Like you need you need a space to lead. I think, and it starts with looking at your leader for who they really are and what they represent, and not put us in that same cricket or that same box. And one thing that I've always said in all of my interviews for administration was that um, I'm cut from a different cloth. And what's important to me about being a leader, um, oftentimes is seen as extra or because I'm all about the culture building. I'm all about climate. Instructional leadership, yeah, I'm gonna tell you how to keep kids engaged, but I'm not gonna tell you how to be a math teacher because I didn't go to school for math. Was what I went to school for. But
Right.
now, if you need to know how to keep kids engaged while you teaching them 2+2 and 4+4, I got you covered,
Mhm.
right? And so, but when you look at, and Pierre Angelique could probably speak to this a little bit, when you look at who is revered and honored and respected as true leaders in schools, it's those who have that lens of curriculum instruction, those who lead with that first
Mhm.
Yeah.
versus leading with what really is bringing kids in, and what Dr. Law always said, like that hard work. How are you connecting kids to this stuff, especially if we ain't giving them what they need, what is important to them, where they could see themselves in this curriculum. Then what are we gonna do? We need to make sure, like I used to tell folks all the time, like, I don't care what it is I'm teaching. When kids come into my class, if I'm telling them that they can do 13 cartwheels underwater while they are doing some basket weaving, they're gonna believe me and they're gonna go out there and try it,
Yeah.
right? No matter what. And that's for me, like I always had to find what connected me to what I needed to do. And for me, it was sports because my mama said she didn't pay for C's, and I knew I couldn't play basketball if I wasn't getting good grades. And
Mhm.
so I think that when I'm thinking about leadership, I need for the lens of culture and climate to come outside of the classroom and making sure that the classroom, is safe for learning, or kids get what they need so that they can be in the classroom and really focus on the whole school and not just say it, right? But like truly, truly, truly mean it, and appreciate and give respect to the things that truly keep the heartbeat, the pulse, and the heartbeat of your school going. And that is what you consider co and extracurricular, but I consider academic core. It's all core to me. That's all, whatever the words like they like to use. That's all. It's all core. So I think just that respect, and then I'm just gonna put it out there. Black women in leadership need to be respected. They need to be supported. They need to be protected
Yeah. Yeah.
and be heard.
I'm letting what Mo said just sit with me for a moment, because
Yeah.
I'm in a really reflective space looking at retiring in just a few months. And I'm thinking about, what my experience would have been like if what Mo is describing would have been my pathway. It wasn't, it was not. And I found a way within that anyway, right? As we like to say, a way out of no way, right? So I'm not even sure what that would have looked like, but I will say this. I feel like what I still need is more truth telling.
Mm.
Just tell the truth. Because I actually truly believe, and there's a part of me that bristles at the term unconscious bias, because in my life experience, most of it is quite conscious, quite conscious. I think it's a choice to declare that you're unconsciously biased. So I feel like I need greater communities of courage. And truth telling is a part of that, right? Stand in the truth. You know what it is. And then I don't believe, a coin doesn't have any value if you only try to spend one side of it.
That's right.
It only has value if you spend both sides.
Yeah.
So that's what I need more of. What I need less of is reverence of white feminism. That's what I need less of. Because in education still, particularly at K-12, it is still dominated by white females. And the concept of so-called woke white women, I'm just gonna be real about it, right? Is, in my experience, one of the greatest obstacles to Black women in leadership. And when I look back very specifically on where a lot of the disrespect that you speak about, Mo, came from, I see it right there. That's where I see it seated most.
Yep, I agree.
So that's both sides of the coin for me. I need more truth telling. I need communities of courage, and I need us to stop deferring to white feminism. Historically, and to this day, it has been one of the largest obstacles to the sense of respect and the visibilizing of Black women at any level and in any regard.
CBS, and I was proud to hear the way in which they hit it, but they just did a special on a Hayward teacher, a Black teacher, 5th, 6th grade teacher, and the intro into her interview. I mean, they hit it. They hit on the low percentage of Black educators in schools, and how they're the 80% of the staff are white women teachers, and how Black and brown students don't see themselves in those spaces. I was shocked, but definitely proud to see CBS. I'll get that link. It's on my Facebook page.
Yeah, that would be cool. I love that.
But it was a great segment that just kind of really hit on that. And I think that we're beginning to say it a little bit more. And I'm with you that unconscious, implicit is explicit. And they're not subtle. That's the other piece. Like whomever is saying that these are subtle instances of microaggression, they ain't Black. And they definitely not a Black woman, because it ain't nothing subtle. There's nothing subtle about being bullied and intimidated and attacked in your role as leadership. Ain't nothing subtle about that. So I agree with you, Pier Angeli, in that respect. It's just like, yeah, we need. I like the communities of courage that you mentioned, and that you can't spend one side of the coin. I'm about to use that this week. I'm gonna let you know that. I'm about to put that one in action this week.
There you go. you know?
So listening to you guys both, what came up for me, especially with that communities of courage, is we have to be 5 times bolder. We have been
Yeah.
timid in our approach, and not to say that we're in a position to go harder, but I think we definitely, to what she said, we gotta create, develop, and hold up communities of courage. But what I really hear you saying too is the protection piece. Who protects us? Where is the protection coming from? Is it ever going to happen? And if it's not, how do we protect each other in the process? Because what happens is when you look at many of the educators I know, as they got older, some of them, they kind of lost it. Some of them end up mentally not being able to keep it together because of the hell that they've had to experience
Yeah.
in educational leadership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that truth, standing on the truth. How do we make sure in every meeting we're in, the truth is, we make sure the truth gets spoken? Now, they may gloss over it, right? But how do we make sure that when we're in that place, we're being 5 times bolder, we're standing on that truth, and we calling it out in that moment? But then, we've created communities of courage, so that when we have allies, or we have co-conspirators around the table with us.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I might implode if I don't, you know what I'm saying? And I'll be in those spaces and I will try to intentionally be quiet, and I'm waiting for somebody else to speak up. Everybody just heard this. Everybody just saw this mad, racist presentation. And then it's just like, you know what? I gotta speak. Because even if no one else is supporting this, and I agree with you, we need that. And I remember when I left my other position, I asked the superintendent, are you going to support me any differently than you have been supporting me? He said, no. I said, well, I'm not doing it then, because this is taking a toll on me and I'm no longer effective anyway. So I'm gonna go where I can be more effective. But being willing, like, what am I willing to risk in order to tell the truth?
Right.
Where is my conviction and courage, right? For me, I think about the Ghanaian Adinkra symbol Sankofa, which is often pictured as a bird with an egg in its mouth, and its head is turned back, looking backwards, but its feet are pointed forward. That symbol is very powerful for me, and I really carry it in a real deep place, because I have to be able to look back. I got to remember from where I came, from what our ancestors have endured, that we might live. It also means reaching back. Who's behind me? Who am I willing to help bring forward? But my feet are pointing forward. I got to act. I got to act like I'm moving in a forward direction. And that egg symbolizes, what am I birthing? And I'm birthing with what I say. I'm birthing with what I don't say. I'm birthing with how I act. I'm birthing when I am unwilling to act. What am I bringing into existence by my choices, moment by moment? Sometimes it's breath by breath, because that I need to you need to breathe right now, or you just gonna go total sapphire right here this moment. Just be like, be cool, but be willing.
Yes.
Cool, but be willing,
Hey, Soulful Sundays ain't got nothing on Pier Angeli. I need to get a Sunday session going on. She'll be preaching.
Right.
This is what 35 years looks like, right? It's like, I hear what you're saying though about educators. Like, I'm not done. I'm just leaving where I am. Retirement does not mean done.
Yes.
It means different. I'm just moving into a different space.
It's funny you said that. I was telling when I go into these our weekly admin meetings, I be telling myself and I'll be telling my admin, but I'm gonna be quiet today. I ain't gonna say nothing today. I'm gonna let these folks talk, and they're just gonna see this, and that is it. I'm not even gonna. And I be sitting behind that screen like, okay, I need somebody to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gotta say nothing. Then nobody say nothing. We're like, well, excuse me, don't we think that? And I get myself all worked up.
Every time.
And I just said that I wasn't gonna say anything. And I love it. And people always say, keep saying it, keep talking. Like that's what people need to hear. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, but I'm being labeled while I'm talking, right? My performance is being blasted to the whole to the whole community of leaders, right? Because I'm struggling. I'm struggling because I'm having these issues that we talking about. And then and then I wonder when people are like, I'm so glad you said that. I'm like, well, you know what? You next. If you glad I said it, then you was thinking it, and I'm gonna need you to go ahead and raise your hand or hit a reaction, a button or something, so we can get this party started. So it's not just coming from me. Because when it just comes from me, then I am labeled the angry Black woman, right? Who is incompetent, can't control her staff, and so it always got something to say. But then I just like, okay, but forget it. I'm not
Yeah.
even gonna say that no more. I'm just gonna talk. And then, but I did tell him, I said, but when I do get quiet, when I do stop talking, y'all know that I have checked out.
Mm.
That I'm done. I'm done with doing this work in this space. This time when I do get silent, and my mom used to say it all the time, don't worry about when I'm talking a lot. It's when I'm silent.
You get
When you
quiet.
don't hear me, then that's when you need to worry, because you know you at a point, you get to a point where you do become done talking. So I'm hoping that me continuing to speak up and out about the things that we discuss, or what we need, that I'm encouraging more people to do the same. Like no matter, and you don't have to be a Black woman to do it.
No.
You can be whatever color, gender, it don't even matter. Be whatever it is. If you feeling it, you understand it, you believe it, you know that something is wrong, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and use this space and this time to speak up as well, because it has to be a collective.
That's where that communities of courage comes in, And I remember at one point I was really lamenting something. I was like in the woe is me's, right? And, like, why is it that folks are going to come in my office to tell me, like I'm so glad you said that, blah, 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 blah. But you didn't say anything in the meeting. You in my office when nobody can hear you or see you telling me this, right? And I was lamenting this, like, folks just won't stand in integrity. They won't do this. They won't do that. And again, my husband, he said, it could be worse. And I was like, yeah, he said, like, yeah, it could be worse. You could be them. You could be the person who's not in integrity. You could be the person who doesn't have the courage of their convictions. It could be worse. And when I think about what it has cost me to be a person who's willing to speak up, to stand up, and to act, I do believe it would have been a mightier cost for my spirit if I had not. And I think it's something we carry as a people. This is the endurance, right? The ability to keep moving, to keep it moving. That is a draw for strength for me, So I hear you on that, Mo, right? As much as I might say I'm not gonna, it's just not in me. It's not in me to not do. So
I'm glad you lifted up it could be worse, because Mo was going through, this might have been a couple months ago. She was going through a rough day, and she was telling me all the stuff, and I had heard, it's a song, It Could Be Worse, and it might be James Fortune or somebody. But I sent it to her, and she was like, thank you for that. And after I sent it, I was kind of like, maybe I shouldn't have sent it, because she might be like, girl. But I was trying to just encourage her, like, you could be dealing with a whole lot more than what you are. And for what she was dealing with in that moment, she was holding it. She was being able to hold it. But I know some days some days you don't have as much strength as you would like. And those are those days when you leaning on your,
you
your
gotta lean
network.
on each other, on our sister circles, and that's just real true, right? It could be worse, because you could be the kind of person doing to other folks what they're willing to do to you. So that's a whole nother type of spirit murder, right? To be that kind of person. So I'm gonna be truth telling. Some days that don't feel like that's enough consolation, but but it's true, So
Well, I know I still have some questions, but I feel like those questions have been answered throughout the conversation. So I want to open it up for the last. We got 14 minutes, y'all. I know y'all probably like, we ready to go, but I'm like, I just whatever comes up, let's respond to each other. Just show them what a real Moxie accountability session looks like. So every hour on the hour for about 10 minutes, we check in. We let each other know where we are in our work and our tasks for the day. But then we also check in for ourselves mentally and spiritually and just the different ways we show up. So the next 14 minutes is just us raw talk about
Yeah.
all the stuff we talked about or anything else you want to talk about.
You want to go, Mo?
I just I appreciate. I always think about when we first started, and I say this all the time. We were all spread out in that room, all over, and we all walked in at the same thing, like 1, 2, 3, 4.
6.
But we were so spread out and not really knowing each other, and it was just so cool to see that spread out just come into us sitting side by side, or in a cluster on the corners, or whatever it was. And then just what it's our sister circle, our Moxie circle has flourished to be, even in the time of shelter in place. And I think about how grateful and appreciative I am of meeting each and every one of y'all, and just knowing that I could come into a space and we can just be our authentic selves, and work on what we need to work on, and work on each other. It's just it's powerful. um it's loving, it's healing. And I just it's the reason that I continue to go back to school, is to find these spaces. Now I ain't going back to school no more after this, and everybody know that this is it for that. But yeah, I just it's a feeling, it's a sisterhood, it's a connection that is just surreal in many ways. And I just appreciate it. I'm just so grateful, and I just continue to count my blessings.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna echo that. Gratitude is the word, you know. It's hard to really define it, right? Because so much of it is just visceral, it's just felt. I'm remembering that, both Rika and I were smiling broadly when you were talking about how we were, like we started all around the room, and then there was just this sort of like, this knowingness that we will come together, right? There are things that you don't have to explain when you're in a circle of other Black women. And it isn't just the immediate, whatever you might be experiencing in that moment. It's a whole history. There's a lifetime, and our mother's lifetimes, and our grandmother's lifetimes, and theirs before them, that we carry in our bones, right? We carry in our blood. And for me, the way it most often shapes up is when I need laughter and I need love. I know where I can be. I know where I need to be, There's a author, and I've also, they were based in Oakland, Malidoma Some and Sobomthu Some from Burkina Faso. And they talked about in their village that when a woman is pregnant, there's a song that the other women generate, that is the song that they sing to her as her pregnancy is developing. When the baby comes into life, they sing the song through her labor. That anytime the child, as it's growing up, sort of loses its way, the child doesn't get punished. They sing the child's song to remind them of who they really are. And that when they're taking their final breath, everybody in that community sings that same song to that person. When I think about the Black women, those I've even never met, and those that I know intimately in my life. I feel like at my worst of times, when I am forgetting who I am, when I am forgetting my own song, that I know who will sing it for me, that I know where to be to have my songs sung back to me, you know. And I'm sorry, y'all, 35 years and I'm marching toward the exit sign, but I'm really reflective of how often in my life I have needed that and how important it is to me in my life. And I'm beyond words of gratitude for what that means to me, right? Yeah, because that's what it really means, is that I hear y'all, you sing my song and I sing yours, So yeah.
Y'all
That's
heard
my-
it here first. Dr. Soon to be LaPlace and Dr. Soon to be Walton. Y'all heard it here. Critical sense making sessions, Revolutionary Rika. Listening to you all and just even thinking about my own journey and the last almost 2 years we've been together, man. June will be 2 years. It seems like it's been 10, right? Remember when I think I was like, this week's been like a month, right? Remember? So, but it's been transformational. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I do resemble the person I walked in as, but my thinking, the way I move, the way I align the different areas of my life so that I'm not working against myself. I'm making it easier for me to be able to, complete all these tasks. It's been transformational.
Yeah.
Every day or just weekly when I'm in different meetings, I see the pieces of Pier Angeli that I've took away, and pieces of Mo, and pieces of Lydia and Tessa and Ty and Alicia and Deborah, all these people that's part of this journey with us.
Yeah.
See the things that I've taken, tweak my own leadership to become better. And I heard you guys saying powerful, powerful. Like there is no word for it. There is no word to describe what was created from interviews of people who did not know us, but were able to match these unique genius personalities together so
Yeah.
that they could support each other through this journey. Even with all the challenges that come from academia, faculty, staff, and that's just reality drama TV is everywhere, right? But even through all of that, they're there to stretch us, right? Even
Right.
those experiences, it's to make us become stronger leaders so that on the other side of this, that the think, feel, act that Pier Angeli talked about earlier, that on the side of this journey, when we get those pieces of paper, that the movement, like it goes into full swing because we're already building those blocks, right? We're talking about dismantling, we're talking about changing the face of, changing the experiences of Black women in leadership. And I know it's gonna happen, it's already happening, right? These subtle ways.
Yeah, and I want to really hold you up. I want to honor you because your name, Revolutionary Rika, is just that's who you are, girl. And for you to create this forum and to bring forth critical sense making, that's no small thing, right? Anytime someone's eyes are open differently, their ears can hear differently, their heart, the aperture of their heart can widen. Anytime we can stand in the space of uplift, it's transformative for us, but it's also transformative for others. And I honestly believe somebody's hand was at work in this. I don't know how we all came together, but somebody's hand was in this, because I'd be looking at other, and I'm not taking anything from other groups. I just know we are unique.
Yes.
And I'm so thankful for it.
Yes.
I know I landed in the right place. I can tell you that much.
So. There's no way. I mean, I would have made it, of course, starting with whoever we start with, but this, the just the connection, and without even working hard, we didn't even force this. It wasn't even a forced thing. And then when you bring in like our families and, especially with us now being at home, you get some of everybody and everything. And it's just it's yeah, it's a great feeling, and it's help. I mean, I will tell you that I would definitely be lost without this group, this space in these 2 years that I have been doing what I'm doing. Um, and then I just appreciate, I appreciate that collective activism, because we are making, we making moves, we making strides, you know, the things that we talking about, the way in which we are putting things together. And I think and just the passion behind the work. And I think that that's where we separate ourselves in how we engage in the curriculum, engage in doing the work. Because, you know, for when thinking about Pier Angeli saying, for our ancestors, they couldn't do this.
That's right.
They could, you know, they could, many of them could not. And so now that we have the opportunity, and we are doing it. You know, for many people, it's just it's the formality is education to get to the highest, you know, the highest degree that you could possibly get, because that's just what you're supposed to do. You know, for us, it's reasons behind it, it's heart behind it, it's pain, you know, it's so romance, is so much behind why we are in this space, and why we're doing what we're doing, and why we chose this program, and why this program chose us.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just,
Yeah.
it's so cool to know that, you know, we are making history, and we have made history through this program, and we will continue to do so together. And so, I mean, it's just, when you think about, that's what excites me the most, it's that team. You know, when you think about just growing in that sisterhood, and how no matter what, if we on accountability writing sessions after we get these letters or not, you know, collectively, and whatever we're gonna be doing, we pushing this agenda. We
Yeah.
making, you know, humanizing spaces for Black women in leadership. Like I said, it's, man, when they listening to them 6 dissertations talking about Black feminist theory, critical race, they, they just about to get hit, boom, 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 you know. And powerful though, like, you know, and I just go back, and I don't really like to use the word power, but it's powerful. And we leaving a mark, and I love being part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
But now we gotta get back to work, huh? That's what that's saying. That's all you had as our last questions.
Yeah, that was our last question. I really appreciate you both ladies for coming on, sharing your authentic truths with the listeners, and just having a good time, you know, being able to share our challenges as well as our triumphs, and the things that we need to do to keep pushing through. And the next time they see us all together, Lydia and Tessa will be joining.
Awesome.
Stop.
All right then.
Graduate, I plan to bring us all back together and make critical sense of our whole doctoral journey together.
There you are. Now it's one. Now we're talking, huh?
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you, Mo, I'm holding you to that Moxie playlist. We have to start putting that Moxie playlist together. So
That's
all right.
Because sometimes when we can't get on, just having that, it's like we feel each other. So thank you guys again. We're jumping off to do some homework. If y'all want to join us, text us. You can invite. Might be next month, so it might be too late. But
that's fine. We're still gonna be doing it. Don't worry about
that's all right.
I'm
sure.
We in this until spring
The long
2022.
haul. The long haul.
next time. The Moxies
Thank you
are
so
out.
much, Rika.
Thanks, Rika.
Oh.